Today we are doing trans stuff. Transmission, man. Transmission. Oh baby, stay there. Don't move. My goal for today is to get this transmission mated up to the LS. Now, just to clarify, I'm not gonna be able to put this all in as one piece. I'm gonna have to put the engine in and then I'm gonna put the transmission in through the bottom of the Blazer. Reason being, the last time I put this thing in all one piece like this, it was a pain in the freaking ass. I literally had to it got wedged and stuck and I had to just to get it in there, bro. So I don't wanna have to go through that again. Anyhow, we need to get these things mated up to one another. Before we do that, we'll have to take it back off. So I do have a clutch kit that I need to install. We need to install our flywheel. I have all brand new ARP hardware for that, in which did not come with the clutch kit. And new clutch kit from an S10 Blazer and a NFW 1050 flywheel. I have all the part numbers and everything that we are using for this in a video that I already posted up last weekend. I'll put a link in the description down below if you guys are interested in that. But yeah, all the part numbers for everything that I'm using is in that video. And like I said, I'll link that in the description down below if you are interested or if you need that information. But the main purpose of this is we need to get the clutch mounted onto the engine so that I can then mount my new hydraulic throwout bearing. This is gonna have to be shimmed because the spacing between this and the teeth on the pressure plate, it has to be within spec. You don't want it to be too close, you don't want it to be too far. Honestly, I haven't even looked up what that spacing is supposed to be yet, so I still need to do that, but we have a lot of work before we even get to that point. I gotta get this clutch on, and we can't put the clutch on with it on the engine stand. You all right there, buddy? Yes, I'm gonna set my LS on a plastic crate. I'm just kidding. It's just to kind of support it so it's not swinging around while we're working on it. First thing is first. What I'm gonna do is I have an assortment of brushes here and some WD-40 and a rag. I'm just gonna clean this crank up, kind of get the surface rust off of it, kind of run this pipe brush inside of the threads, make sure there's no dirt and stuff in there. Like, I've had this thing sitting in my backyard with this area open like this for some time now. Also, we need to press a pilot bearing inside of here, so I want to make sure this is good and clean, and which I ought to mention, my pilot bearing is currently in the freezer. It has been in there now for about 20 minutes, and I plan on leaving it in there for as long as I can so that it'll shrink that thing down a little bit. If you didn't know, if you put things like that, anytime you have to press something in, whether it's a bushing or a bearing or something, throw it in the freezer and it will ever so slightly microscopically shrink. Yeah, science. And the only thing Toby cares about is for me to go throw his damn ball. Ball? 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 Give me that ball. Give me that ball, Toby. Toby, give me that ball. You better give me that ball, Toby. You better give me that ball, Toby. You better give me that ball. He's always like, I'm not giving it to you. You have to take it from me. Dude, watch out, dude. Watch out, man. Oh, there it goes. Alright, I'm now going to use some brake cleaner inside of all these threads because I want to make sure that they are kind of good and cleaned out. I don't want them to be full of WD-40 at all, Because whenever I go to use some thread locker in here, I want the thread locker to actually be able to stick to metal and not have an oily residue it's trying to stick to, you know what I'm saying? All right, got our bearing fresh out of the freezer. I also grabbed a socket that fits on it pretty damn close. We are going to go ahead and tap this thing in here. I will be putting a little bit of looby-dooby just to kind of help the process along. I'm gonna use the mallet to get it started. Kind of make sure to get it going in there straight. I'm sure most of you guys know that. Switch over to this mamma jamma and get the mamma jamming it the rest of the way. I think that is all the way in there. It doesn't feel like it's wanting to go any further, so double check, give it a couple more taps just to make sure. Go ahead and put a little bit of sriracha sauce on the inside race of this bearing, just so I don't forget to do it later. All right, now it is time for our brand spanking new flywheel. Dude, this thing is heavy, bro. This thing is about as heavy as a Honda transmission, I'll tell you what. And our flywheel bolt kit from ARP. Now, it came with fastener assembly lubricant. This is the lubricant you put on the threads to make sure everything torques properly. So I'd imagine with putting this stuff on the threads, that kind of eliminates the ability to put thread locker, is what it is. Then I'm gonna go ahead and use the lubricant just to do it the way that they recommend. Give me my lube, man. That thing does not want to come out of there. Oh, a little note. I've got me a little note from ARP. What's up? Dun dun dun. What? Lubricate the threads of the bolt with Loctite and underhead of the bolt with ARP Ultra Torque Fast. Okay, I'm glad I read this because I'm completely wrong. So this lubricant you are supposed to put underneath the head so that it eliminates the friction from underneath the head to the surface of the flywheel. Yeah, so it wants me to lubricate the threads with Loctite and put this fastener assembly lubricant underneath the head. So this thing's gonna get lubed up all over the freaking place. See? Pays to read the instructions every once in a while. I would have done this completely wrong. All right, so this thing is about to get all of the damn lubricants, buddy. We hit in the center bore of this with some sriracha sauce just to help it slide onto the crank a little bit better. So just this little lip inside of here, I'm hitting with the assembly lube. That'll help us slide that on there. Boom, and line our holes up. All right, so instead of trying to get this fastener assembly lubricant on the bottom of the head of all these bolts, what it is I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and smear this stuff on the face, on the surface of the flywheel itself. So it's basically the same thing, just adding this to the face of the flywheel. That's where the underneath the head of the bolt is going to be coming in contact with this anyhow. So now I don't have to worry about getting that stuff just on the head of the bolt, and I can just worry about putting Loctite on my thread. Oh, that was a lot. Alright, so I'm going to be finding a place to put this beefy screwdriver in here to stop the engine from turning. There we go. Oh yeah, that's going to work. Alright, so our torque spec is 74 foot-pounds for these bolts. That's going to be our final torque, but it's recommended to go in stages of 3. So, alright, step 1, 15 foot-pounds, and I'm going to be going in a cross, basically the same way that you would put your wheels on. Right now it's kind of sucking the flywheel in, so just giving each one of them a little bit of a turn until it stops. We have to snug this flywheel up to the crank. Alright, here we go. It's 15. Now for 37. Spin till that screwdriver catches. There's 37. Now, our final number is 74. I might need to stand up for this one. Go over and double check them all. All right, I'm not gonna lie, I did it to 75, sue me. All right, now we'll go ahead and clean all that assembly shit off of there. And these things come all lubricated and greased up, you know what I'm saying? You guys all know that. So they don't get rusty during packaging or sitting on a shelf. So get all that shit off of here. I'm gonna get my camera to focus on this, so if you guys do want to pause it or take a screenshot and read what it is that they have written here, then there you go. So now, get to go ahead and get our clutch kit all opened up. I've already opened it up, but you know. Dude, I'm actually stoked that this came with a 6-puck, but I hope that the stock transmission is going to be able to handle this, because I don't plan on being easy on the Blazer at all. I plan on driving the absolute shit out of this thing. I can't lie. Anyhow, I'm pretty sure that goes that way, just like any other clutch. So we have our 6-puck disc, we have our pressure plate, and what is this? Spline lubricant, man. We've just got all the lubricants around here, boy. And the clutch tool, the alignment tool, the lifesaver. I don't know what the hell that's for. What is this for? Huh. All right, take our clutch disc, our alignment tool, slide those two together. No lubricant necessary for that. We're gonna press that alignment tool into our bearing back there. Bam, get our clutch nice and flush. Damn, that barely grabs onto the flywheel. I mean, it grabs. No, it's good. It's so weird seeing the disc taking up such a small portion of the flywheel, you know what I mean? Because the flywheel is so large, but then again, this is also the surface where our pressure plate mounts, so guess that makes sense. All right, now before we do put this flywheel on, I'm gonna go ahead and spray it off with some brake cleaner as well. Gotta get all the grease and everything off of it. Now I gotta figure out where this thing lines up at, bro. Last time it took me forever. Forever. That ain't it. Oh my God. All right, I have that ready to go on. Gonna get our ARP flywheel bolts ready to go on. I am just going to be using Loctite on these, no lubricant. Oh, these come with washers, okay. Oh, and there's another note. I better read the note. Watch the note, it's gonna tell me no Loctite. All right, this just has the torque specs on it, which for the ones that I have, it tells you 50 foot-pounds. So when I Googled it, it told me to put them at 52 foot-pounds. So it's around the same. Okay, so I am actually having to drill out a few of the holes, 3 of them to be exact. So basically there's 2, 2, and 2. On each set of 2, there is a larger diameter hole and then a slightly smaller diameter hole. So the smaller hole, the bolts, like they would fit, but you'd have to send it and it would basically kind of create threads in it, you know what I'm saying? So I am just opening it up ever so slightly. I want it to be tight because I feel like that is what's going to center this thing onto the flywheel itself. So I am just opening it up slightly. I'm not even having to go an entire step on my drill bit. Bang, bang, there it is. So that's those 2. That is those 2, and I've got one more hole I need to drill over here. So see, this one fit. No, that one doesn't fit. This one fits, and this one does not. It's just ever so slightly too small. There it is. See, I'm leaving it nice and tight too. I do want it to still be tight, because like I said, I feel like that's gonna be a big contribution to making sure this thing is centered on the flywheel. I'm gonna pop all these bolts out and I'm gonna use my air compressor and make sure that I get every single bit of the shavings from drilling off of this before we move forward with installing it. I think I got them all. Go through and check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bam, bam. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. There it is. Oh, baby, would you look at that, man. This 5.3, for the first time in its life, has a clutch bolted up to it. This engine's not gonna know what to do, man. It's only ever had an automatic. But anyhow, moving on. This is our hydraulic throw bearing, in which I picked up from Speedway Motors. Huge shout out to my boy Robbie V. He was the one behind the counter helping me figure out exactly which one to get. Hopefully it works. If not, I blame Robbie. Anyhow, it comes with the actual throw bearing itself. These are shims to go in behind it. This is going to be the pain in the ass part, is figuring out how many shims, if any at all, to put behind this thing. Because, like I mentioned, you want a certain distance between your throw bearing and those teeth on the pressure plate. Otherwise, you could potentially run into problems. And we have some instructions, my friend, in which I am most certainly going to read these. I'm going to read through this. Another thing that I need to do is this slides onto the shaft of the transmission, and it's really tight, bro. It's supposed to be tight, man. We don't want no freaking Ashleys around here, but this thing is all rusty, so I want to go through and clean this up really well so that it has a nice clean surface to slide onto. So I'm gonna put my rag down here, and I'm gonna coat this thing with some double D. Go through and start scrubbing some of this stuff loose. Grab a piece of Scotch-Brite. Alright, so we got ourselves a nice clean shaft. Now we gotta lubricate our shaft a little bit, or a lot of bit, just a bit. And now this old girl should slide right on there with no problem. Oh, bro, that was way too easy. Oh my God, that is perfect, man. I'm so stoked about that. So we will have to pull one of these bolts out in the back. So you see these bolts back here? So you pull one of those out and then you replace it with one of these studs. And that little flat area, what it does is it goes in between here and it stops this from being able to spin around in a circle. So it will have the potential of being able to like turn a little bit, which is fine. You just don't want this thing to freaking spin in a circle and rip your hydraulic lines out and stuff, you know what I mean? So anyhow, we are also going to need to drill some holes over here in the side of the casing for our lines to come out. So we will have a feed line, which is this one right here, the longer one. This is what is going to run all the way up to my slave cylinder that is mounted on the firewall. And then we also have a bleeder line. So this right here is for bleeding it. This is just an extension for that right there. I'm pretty sure we take this nipple right here off. We'll screw that line on and then run that out so we're able to access it in order to bleed this thing. You know what I'm saying? You better believe I'm gonna make damn sure all these fittings are nice and tight. Could you just imagine that, getting everything in? Oh, somebody forgot to tighten a line. Anyhow, all right, so here comes the fun part. According to the instructions, we need 50 thousandths, we need between 50 thousandths and 100 thousandths of an inch between our throw bearing and our pressure plate little teeth, little arms. So in order to find that, I need to measure from here. Now, to be straight up with you, most people that I've watched videos on how to do this, their bell housing unbolts and they're able to bolt their bell housing and measure from the bell housing in, where I'm not capable of doing that because my casing on this NV3500 is all one piece. So I'm going to have to measure from the front face of the bell housing in to the face of the throw bearing, and then I'll need to measure from the actual block where the bell housing bolts up out to where it is the teeth are at on the pressure plate. So I have to take those two measurements and I have to figure out exactly how close this is right now with no shims, and if I have to add shims, we'll go from there until we get a total of 500 or 50 thousandths to 100 thousandths of an inch gap in between them. So that's gonna be interesting. I tell you what, we ain't got no fancy measuring devices around these here parts, so I'm gonna have to make do with what it is I've got. There's our depth. There it is, baby. That's our depth right there. So from the face of the bell housing here to the face of that throwout bearing is exactly 3 7/8 of an inch. Now over here, what I did to get this measurement, so if you put the straight edge on the face of this pressure plate, the teeth are still exactly 1/8 of an inch back from this straight edge. Measuring from the block where our bell housing bolts up to the straight edge that is sitting flush against our pressure plate, that is exactly 3 5/8 of an inch. Coming back over here, just to double check, yeah, those teeth are 1/8 of an inch away. So 3 5/8 minus 1/8 of an inch is 3 1/2 inches. All right, so we have 3 7/8, and then we have 3 1/2 inches. So that leaves 3/8 of an inch gap in between our throwout bearing and our pressure plate. So what is 3/8 of an inch in decimals?
0.375 according to some information I found on Far West Steel.
Okay, so 0.375, and we need to get down to 0.100 at the absolute max. So we need to get rid of 0.275. All right, so each one of these shims is 1/16 of an inch thick. 1/16 of an inch is 0.0625 in decimals. So calculator, so 0.275 divided by 0.0625 equals 4.4. So we need exactly 4.4. So basically 4 1/2 of these to get to 275 thousandths, which would bring our gap down to 100 thousandths. But if you remember, we're capable of being between 50 and 100 thousandths. So it'd be better to be a little bit further than that. So an even 5, I think, is going to be perfect, bro. So we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shims in behind the throwout bearing, and that should be perfect. And in which to double check, if you remember our original measurements, we had exactly 3/8 of an inch gap in between our pressure plate and our throwout bearing. So if each one of these are 1/16 of an inch thick, and you stack up 5 of them, that means that this is going to be 5/16, which is exactly 1/16 away from being 3/8. So that will leave a 1/16 of an inch gap in between the teeth of our pressure plate and our throwout bearing. So with the 1/16 of an inch gap in between, what is 1/16 of an inch in decimals?
0.0625 according to some information I found on Far West Steel.
So that leaves us 0.0625, in which we needed to be at 0.050 or 0.100 in between there. So dead on perfect, bro. I hope you guys are able to follow that. This is my first time ever doing this. I'm actually kind of a little bit proud of myself that I was able to figure it out. So go ahead and slide this guy back off of here. Now we need to go ahead and take this bolt out that is at the 2 o'clock position. Well, this bolt is actually pretty close to what I would probably consider the 3 o'clock position, but you get it. Oh, that's gonna be a problem. These studs are definitely not the same. Well, shit. What do I do about that? What the hell, Gina? We're gonna put our 5 shims on first. Now go ahead and throw the throwout bearing back on. Bam, bam, baby. There's our spacing. That's exciting. All right, so running into my first problem. It's not really a big deal, but it's a deal. So it comes with, this kit right here comes with these studs. So you're supposed to remove one of these bolts out of the transmission, in which I did. I removed that bolt right there. This is it. Now, I don't know if you guys can see the problem, but this thing, it came with 2 of them. The other one is larger. This is the smaller of the 2, and it still isn't small enough to replace where this bolt came out of. So this is a 10 millimeter nut. Well, it's a 10 millimeter socket that pulled this off. So basically this is not gonna fit in there, but that is where it's supposed to be. So this is supposed to just screw in there. Like I mentioned earlier, this thing will spin around and it'll come in contact with it. So, you know, just through the inertia of everything spinning in here, you don't want this to end up spinning with everything, you know what I'm saying? So you just want something in here as just kind of a bump stop, and it just stops this thing from going round and round. Unfortunately, that one doesn't work. I was really excited because I found a Honda bolt. This is a bolt that holds the timing belt cover on, the little plastic timing belt covers. This would have worked perfect if the threads were a little bit longer. So it does like thread in there, and I can tighten it down, but I feel like there's only like maybe 2 at most 3 threads actually catching. So if you look at the threaded portion of this in comparison to that bolt that we pulled out, that's a huge difference. So I'm gonna need to run to an auto parts store and see if I can find something similar to this. If not, I'm just gonna get a really long bolt, like a grade 8 bolt, one that's strong, and then get a nut also. So then I could screw this in, and then I could just have a jam nut that I tighten up, maybe 2 nuts, so I can tighten 2 nuts against one another. So I know it's not gonna back out inside of there. Yeah, so that's gonna kind of put me back for the day. I need to run to a hardware store and get that. But there's another thing. I don't know if you guys remember, I had to run out and go and buy bolts to actually bolt the transmission to the block, because the bolts that I had were way too long. So we had to go and buy shorter ones, in which the length of these are all right. I wouldn't mind. I think I can get a couple more threads in there. So if I can, I would like to get new ones that are actually grade 8, stronger bolts than this, because these are just, I forget what grade they are, but they were just what they had, bro. They didn't have any of the stronger bolts. I had to get them from Home Depot that day. So I do want to get new transmission bolts, ones that are just, you know, even a 1/4 of an inch longer would be great, and in grade 8. So I need to grab that from the hardware store, and I also need to figure something out to replace this from the hardware store. Not to mention, I also need to run around and go see if I can find a conversion. So this line, this screws into the throwout bearing. It is going to replace our factory line. So this is my factory line coming out here to the Blazer. This is our master cylinder that is actually for the clutch, and our factory line will screw into that, but it's not set up. It's not set up for this AN line to screw on there. So I need to get an adapter that's going to screw into our master that looks like the end of this, but then on the other side of it, it has an area to screw on this dash 3 AN. So I need to find that adapter so we can actually screw into our master. So yeah, we do have a few roadblocks for the day. There's another really sad bit of information that I just learned. So I was gonna save this for a surprise. I wanted to go and pick one up tomorrow, or maybe even this evening after I'm done with this video. I wanted to run over there and go grab myself a Terminator X. So I was gonna pick up a Holley Terminator for the Blazer, in which that's still the plan. Like, I want to run it on a Holley Terminator, but they're all sold out everywhere. Like, you call around, they're all back ordered. And I guess Speedway, that's where Robbie V works. I hit Robbie V up, and I guess they have been back ordered for months already. So I would imagine there's probably some kind of wait list for them. And honestly, I can't wait like 6 months, bro, for the Blazer to be running. So I don't know, we're gonna have to figure something else out. If anybody has any leads or any information on where you'd be able to get a Holley right now, most certainly hit me up. I need a 24 tooth reluctor wheel, and I don't know, if you can get them, just hit me up, man, and we'll talk about it. My only other alternative is the fact that I do still have the complete stock wiring harness, and I do still have the stock ECU from the Tahoe that we pulled this stuff out of. So if anybody is good with HB tuners and knows exactly what it is that has to be done, like with the harness and the ECU and all that stuff, by all means, man, shoot me a message. Let's talk about it. But that would be a good temporary fix. But long term, no matter what, I do end up wanting to have both my truck and the Blazer on a Holley ECU. So anyhow, with all this bad news aside, I feel like we can at least move on and get the lines installed on the transmission. So I'm not sure exactly what side I want to put the 90 on. So you see the angle of the bleeder? So the bleeder is gonna go up. I feel like I should probably drill a hole like right here. I don't really want it to be kinked on the inside of here. And then, well, actually, whenever we do have a bolt in there, it's gonna sit about right there. So yeah, right here around this area. I figured if I put this 90 on the inside of the transmission, then we can just run them both out the same hole, because Really, this 90 doesn't, like, I would rather have a straight on both ends because the straight works better on the throwout bearing and the straight works better on the master cylinder out there as well. I can make the 90 work on the master cylinder, just the only problem is this 90 doesn't swivel. So I'd have to get it in the, whenever I tighten this side down, I would have to get it in the right position because I'm not going to be able to spin the hose because there's only one position I'd be able to put this 90 on that slave out there. Like, it has to sit something, it's like something like that, and it'd have to be in that position. And if I don't have this tightened down to where this is clocked the right way, then I'm gonna run into an issue. So it kind of has me like I ought to just get rid of that problem and just go ahead and use the 90 on the inside of the transmission. I don't know, it's probably what I'm gonna do, but either way, we gotta drill a hole right about here. Oh, just burnt my drill up. Lovely. Throw it in the gutter. Go buy another. Sucker. I was wondering what that smell was. Bang. So I now realize why it is people make such large holes inside of their transmission whenever they are running these lines out, because I was looking it up, like what other people do, and they're literally taking like a hole saw. Like one of these guys right here, bro. Taking that big of a hole and just mowing through there like meh, meh. So I was like, dude, I'm not gonna make that big of a hole. I'm just gonna use my unibit and make a hole big enough for the freaking hose to go through. Why do you need such a big hole? I feel like making such a large hole, you're taking like strength away from the bell housing of the transmission, but I realize why they do it now, and it's because the hose actually moves with the throwout bearing. So whenever you press the throwout bearing, look, the hose moves with it. So they're making that large hole so that the hose isn't getting bound up and potentially wearing a hole in it, I'd imagine. So what I did was I drilled 2 holes and then connected them. So I made like slotted holes. So they are larger. It has enough room for the hose to move in there. But it's not just a ginormous circle. And I was able to go on the inside of the webbing. So I'm not actually taking any of the webbing of the transmission out. It was just a flat section, so took as little of the strength of the bell housing away as I possibly could. But now that I got finished with that, I realized that I have another problem. So this line that I bought, it actually is the wrong size. The fitting, it doesn't screw on there. Like, it's too small. So now I need to actually take this hose back to Speedway and get a different size. I need to get that size. So in order to do that, I think it's best if I take both of these hoses with me. So I mean, we got the holes drilled, but that's about it. I can't put these hoses on yet. So I want to be able to take this in and be like, hey, I bought that, it's the wrong size, I need it to be this size. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna put those on for now. Well, one thing after another is adding up of little petty, tiny little things I need to run to the store and go and pick up in order to finish this, man. I have a small little grocery list of things now that I need to go and pick up. You know what? I'm gonna make one of those little cell phone videos out of it. You guys seem to have enjoyed that, so. Anyhow, before we end today's video, I'm gonna go ahead and I wanna kind of clean the inside of the transmission before we actually go and bolt this thing all together. So I'll just take this stuff off and set it out of our way for now. Yeah, man, this needs a little bit of super clean in here before we just send it and bolt them together. The outside I can still get to once we bolt it together, but I do want to get this all cleaned up as well. So let's get that done. Oh shit. Stay. Super clean, you already know, baby. much better than what it was, man. Got most of that crap out of the inside, all that crap that was all caked up on the top. Probably the worst place is actually on the bottom where I actually didn't do anything at all. And once it's installed inside of the Blazer, that's gonna be the only place that is visible or where I have to put my hands on it, but it is what it is, man. I'll clean it up more later. Also have to clean the engine up, which I'm gonna do that later as well. Just gotta make sure to get this stuff cleaned up before it actually goes into the Blazer, because it's a lot easier to do it with it out, you know what I'm saying? But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you guys did, please do smash the like button. It definitely helps me tremendously. Peace out, guys, and I'll see you on the next one. Later.